Listen well, because this is not a story that began with shouting. It began quietly. It began with thirst. But before we speak of thirst, let me take you to the day everything finally broke. The market in Iluahe was full that morning, full in the way markets are full when people still believe tomorrow will be better. Women spread out their goods on woven mats. Tomatoes shone red under the sun. Smoked fish lay neatly arranged. Men laughed loudly as they bargained, pretending not to care who won. Children ran barefoot between legs, chasing one another, knocking into baskets, earning soft scolding and quick smiles. River Loma flowed beside the market, wide and brown, calm like it had always been. The people of Iluahe trusted that river. They trusted it the way a child trusts a mother's voice in the dark. Then the first scream came. It cut through the market like a blade. A woman dropped her calabash. Water splashed onto the dust, soaking into the earth too quickly. Another woman stumbled, her hands flying to her throat. A man reached out to help her and fell beside her instead. At first, people thought it was a joke. Then someone shouted. Then someone else fell. Fear moved faster than understanding. People began to push. Baskets overturned. Calabashes rolled across the ground, spilling water no one dared to touch anymore. Children cried as their mothers pulled them close. Old men shouted warnings that were swallowed by noise. And in the middle of that fear stood one young man. His name was Ao. Ao was not shouting. He was not running. He was standing still, his feet planted in the dust, his eyes fixed on River Loma. Before anyone asked what truly happened, before anyone tasted the water again, before anyone slowed their hearts, the crowd turned on Ao. Fingers pointed at his chest. Voices rose against his name. Fear needed a shape, and it chose him. Someone shouted that Ao had spoken against the water before. Someone said he had touched the pots. Someone said they had always known Ao carried trouble. Ao opened his mouth, but the sound that came out was thin and weak. No one listened, and as anger closed in around him, the narrator's voice settles gently but firmly over the chaos. If only they knew what he did to their water. Now listen carefully, because this story did not begin in the market. It did not begin with screaming. It began long before that day, when Iluahe was tired. Months earlier, the village of Iluahe had been living with quiet worry. The rains came late that year. When they came at all, they were weak, falling in thin lines that barely darkened the soil. Crops bent low, not with fullness, but with struggle. Leaves yellowed too early. The ground cracked in places where it had never cracked before. Sickness came the way sickness often does, quietly. A child with fever here. An old woman coughing there. Nothing loud enough to cause panic, but enough to drain strength from the village little by little. People prayed, but their prayers felt dry. It was during that season that Maliku arrived. No one saw Maliku come from far away. One day, he was simply there, standing near River Loma with clay pots arranged neatly at his feet. He was calm, the kind of calm that makes people lower their voices without knowing why. Maliku spoke gently. He never raised his voice. He never rushed his words. He said the river had spoken to him. He said the water could heal if treated with respect. He said it must be taken in clean pots and grateful hands. People listened. The first person to drink said they felt better. The second said their heads stopped aching. A woman said her child slept through the night for the first time in days. Hope is powerful. Hope spreads faster than fear. Soon, lines formed by River Loma every morning. People came early, calabashes balanced on their heads, murmuring prayers and thanks. The elders watched and nodded. They said Iluahe had been remembered by the spirits. Songs were sung. Praise names were given. Maliku was welcomed as a blessing. Only one person stood away from the line. Ao watched quietly from the side. He did not feel joy the way others did. Something in his chest stayed tight. He noticed small things that felt wrong, things others brushed aside. He noticed that Maliku never drank first. He noticed the clay pots never touched bare ground. He noticed that when Maliku stood close to River Loma, his shadow bent slightly, as if pulled. Ao spoke once, carefully. "Should we not ask more questions?" he said. Laughter answered him. The elders frowned. Do not question blessings, they warned. Fear can spoil good things. So Ao fell silent. But the nights did not. Sleep became difficult. When Ao closed his eyes, he dreamed of River Loma. Not the calm river he knew, but a river that watched. In his dream, people drank from it smiling, wiping their mouths, laughing as they walked away. But their shadows did not follow them. Their shadows lagged behind, dragging along the ground. Some shadows bent forward, clutching their own throats. Others reached back toward the water as if pulled. Ao woke up breathing fast, his chest tight, his mat damp with sweat. He sat up and listened to the night sounds, insects, distant dogs, the quiet flow of River Loma. The dreams returned again and again. One morning, tired and uneasy, Ao went to the river earlier than usual. He watched as a woman lifted her pot to fill it. For just a moment, as the pot tilted, he saw something burned into its base. A mark, a dark circle eating itself. Ao's heart jumped. He reached out and touched it. Pain shot through his fingers, sharp and sudden, like touching hot metal. He cried out and dropped the pot. Others turned to look. What is it? They asked. Ao pointed. The mark was gone. Laughter rippled through the group. Someone shook their head. Someone said fear had made Ao imagine things. Maliku smiled gently and said nothing. Ao said nothing more. But the dreams did not stop. Then came the evening that changed everything. A child was sent to fetch water before sunset. It was a simple task. Children had done it every day of their lives. The sun dipped low. The child did not return. At first, no one worried. Children wandered. Children played. But as the sky darkened and River Loma remained quiet, fear began to stir. People searched the paths. They called the child's name. They searched the bushes. Near the riverbank, they found the calabash. It stood upright, clean, dry. Mothers screamed. Fathers ran back to the river, shouting into the water as if it could answer. Elders argued, voices sharp with fear and confusion. River Loma flowed calmly. Some said the child must have wandered. Others said the river takes what it gives. Maliku spoke softly. He said faith must be strong in hard times. He said fear can bring sickness faster than truth. People nodded, because nodding felt easier than screaming. Ao felt something break inside his chest. This was no test. This was no blessing. And still, the water kept flowing. The night after the child disappeared, Ilu Ahe did not sleep. Fires burned longer than usual. People sat outside their homes whispering, as if speaking softly could keep fear from hearing them. Dogs whined for no reason. Somewhere in the dark, a baby cried and would not stop. River Loma flowed beside the village, calm and steady, but its sound felt louder now. Each splash against the bank felt like a breath taken too close to the ear. Ao lay awake on his mat, staring at the roof above him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the calabash standing upright by the river, clean, dry, waiting. Before dawn, he rose and walked toward the river. The air was cool. A thin mist rested on the water like a blanket. A few villagers were already there, standing quietly with their clay pots. No one spoke much. People avoided looking at River Loma for too long, as if it might notice. As the sun climbed, people filled their calabashes and turned to leave. That was when Ao saw it clearly. The people walked forward, but their shadows did not. At first, Ao told himself it was the angle of the sun. He shifted his position and looked again. The shadows dragged behind the bodies, stretched long and wrong, like tired animals pulled by ropes. One man laughed with his friend, but his shadow bent forward, its hands wrapped tightly around its own throat. A woman waved across the path, but her shadow did not lift its arm. Ao checked his own shadow. It followed him exactly. Cold ran down his spine. He tried to speak, but his voice felt weak, like it had traveled too far before leaving his mouth. "Do you see that?" he asked. People frowned at him. "See what?" someone replied. Ao could not explain. How do you explain when the world itself feels loose? That night, the dreams returned stronger than before. In his sleep, Ao stood at the edge of River Loma. The water rose slowly, inch by inch, climbing over the banks. People stood around him, trying to speak, but their words fell straight into the river and disappeared. He watched as their mouths moved without sound. He woke up gasping, his heart racing. Morning came, but peace did not come with it. The second disappearance happened quietly. A young boy was sent to fetch water before sunset. His sister walked with him part of the way. They joked and laughed, arguing about who would carry the calabash home. Only the sister returned. She stood by the riverbank, staring at River Loma, her hands empty. For a long moment, no sound came out of her mouth. Then her scream broke free. People ran. They searched the paths and the bushes. They called the boy's name until their voices cracked. Men stepped into the shallow parts of the river, splashing and shouting. Near the bank, they found the calabash. It stood upright, clean, dry. Fear could no longer hide. Mothers pulled their children close and refused to let them out of sight. Fathers sharpened tools and sticks, not knowing what they planned to fight. Elders argued louder now, their voices tight with worry. Maliku stepped forward calmly. "The river tests us," Maliku said gently. "Faith must not break." Many people nodded. They wanted to believe him. Belief felt easier than doubt. Ao felt his chest tighten. This was no test. From that day, Ao began to count. He counted the missing. He counted the days. He counted the calabashes. Every person who vanished had drunk first. Every calabash they used carried the same burned mark beneath it, a dark circle eating itself. The mark never stayed long. When others looked, it faded, like it had never been there. But it burned sharp and clear for Ao every time. The water did not kill quickly. It erased slowly. At first, it took small things. A woman forgot how many children she had before laughing and shaking her head. A man forgot the name of his cousin and shrugged it off. Stories were told halfway and then abandoned. Ao noticed everything. He began to write names on pieces of bark and flat stones, hiding them beneath his mat. Each night, he whispered the names softly so they would not disappear. River Loma flowed in the darkness. And somewhere beneath it, something listened. As Ao watched more closely, the village drew away from him. People crossed the path when they saw him coming. Mothers pulled children aside gently. Some villagers whispered that Ao's fear was calling trouble closer. Others said he was jealous of Maliku. Ao tried once more to warn them. "Something is wrong with the water," he said. "It does not heal the way it should." Laughter answered him again. The lines for water grew longer. Then Maliku called for a gathering. The whole village came, eager to hear words that would calm their hearts. The elders stood proudly beside Maliku, their faces hopeful. Ao was called forward. He stood in the center, his shoulders tight, his hands clenched at his sides. Maliku smiled kindly and placed a hand on Ao's head. "My son," Maliku said loudly, "fear can make us see danger where there is none. I forgive you." The crowd sighed with relief. Some clapped. Others nodded. Forgiveness tasted like poison. Ao lowered his head, not because he was wrong, but because the lie had won. That night, River Loma flowed backward. Not for long, but long enough. Fish struggled against the current. Water plants bent the wrong way. The moon's reflection shattered across the surface. Something beneath the river turned over. And it was awake. After River Loma flowed backward, the village of Iluahe no longer breathed the same way. People still rose early. They still swept their compounds and greeted one another. But the greetings were shorter now. Smiles came slowly and left quickly. Eyes shifted instead of holding. Laughter sounded forced, like it was trying too hard to survive. Ao felt the change more than anyone. Children were no longer allowed to play near him. Mothers pulled them away gently, whispering warnings that sounded like prayers. Men who once shared food with him now nodded from a distance and kept walking. Fear had given Ao a new name, though no one said it aloud. He stopped arguing. Instead, he watched. Each morning, Ao stood far from the line by River Loma. He watched people drink. He watched their faces relax for a moment, then tighten again. He watched their shadows drag behind them like they were being pulled by something unseen. The water was working slowly. At night, the dreams returned stronger than before. Ao dreamed that River Loma had a mouth beneath its surface, wide and patient. It did not rush. It waited. People stepped into it willingly, smiling as they went down, their names floating up like bubbles before popping and disappearing. He woke each time with his hands shaking and his heart pounding. One morning, something worse happened. An old woman passed Ao on the path and greeted him warmly. She had known him since he was a child. He greeted her back, relieved by the normal sound of her voice. But after a few steps, she stopped. She turned slowly and looked at him with confusion. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Have we met before?" Ao felt his chest tighten painfully. Memory was slipping now. He went to the elders again, hoping fear had finally opened their ears. They listened, but not with their hearts. "You have spoken enough," one elder said, his voice tired. "Your fear spreads faster than sickness." Another shook his head. "Maliku has helped many. You choose to see only darkness." Ao wanted to shout. He wanted to point to River Loma and force them to look until they saw what he saw. But his voice felt smaller each day, like the water was already pressing on it. That night, Ao made a decision. If the village would not listen, he would go where memories still lived. He went into the forest. The forest began where the paths ended. Few people walked there anymore. Trees grew thick and tall, their branches blocking the light above. The air felt cooler, heavier, filled with the smell of damp earth and old leaves. As Ao walked deeper, the sounds of Ilu Ahe faded. Birds called from hidden places. Insects buzzed low. The ground felt soft beneath his feet, like it remembered many footsteps. He walked for a long time. Then he saw smoke. Not thick smoke, but thin and steady, rising calmly through the trees. He followed it. In a small clearing sat an old woman on a fallen tree trunk. Her back was slightly bent, but her hands were steady. She carved slowly into a piece of wood, her movements unhurried, deliberate. She did not look surprised to see him. "You came late," she said without lifting her eyes. Ao stopped a few steps away, his heart beating fast. This was Mama Nia. He told her everything. He spoke of Maliku, of the water, of the dreams, of the shadows, of the children who vanished, of River Loma flowing backward. He spoke until his throat burned and his voice cracked. Mama Nia listened without interrupting. Her hands never stopped carving. When Ao finished, she nodded once. "The water was taught a bad song," she said, "and now it sings it back." Ao swallowed hard. "What does that mean?" he asked. Mama Nia finally looked up at him. "The water does not heal," she said. "It binds." They sat in silence for a moment, the forest breathing around them. Mama Nia spoke slowly, choosing words even a child could hold. "The water takes small things first," she said. "Doubt, memory, voice. It makes people quiet inside before it takes them outside." Ao felt cold spread through his body. "Why?" he asked. Mama Nia tapped her carving gently against the wood. "Because something beneath River Loma is hungry," she said. "And it cannot survive unless people trust it." Ao's stomach twisted. "Maliku?" he asked. Mama Nia shook her head. "Not fully human," she said. "Only wearing one." The forest seemed to grow still, as if listening. Mama Nia leaned closer. "Do you know who drank first?" she asked. Ao frowned. "Many drank first," he said. "Every morning." She shook her head. "The first," she repeated. "Before the songs. Before the lines." Ao thought hard. Then his breath caught in his chest. "Kato," he said slowly. "The fisherman." Mama Nia nodded. "They said Kato drowned years ago," she said. "But rivers do not forget bodies." Ao's heart raced. "Is he alive?" he asked. "He was kept," Mama Nia answered. "And he still breathes." They found Kato near a bend of River Loma where the trees leaned away, as if afraid. Kato crouched close to the water, thin as a shadow wearing skin. His eyes were dull and unfocused. His hands shook constantly. His lips moved sometimes, but no sound came out. Ao knelt beside him. "Kato," he said gently. The fisherman looked up slowly. "It listens," Kato whispered. River Loma flowed calmly. Mama Nia spoke again. "There is a way to break the binding," she said. "But it is dangerous." Ao listened closely. "The first drinker must drink again," she said. "From the river itself. No pot. No blessing. In front of everyone, she added. Truth must be seen. One chance, she warned. No mistake. Ao felt the weight settle heavily on his shoulders. River Loma shifted slightly, waiting. Ao did not return to Iluahe immediately after hearing the truth. He remained by the bend of River Loma, sitting on the damp earth while Cato crouched close to the water, rocking gently as if the river still whispered into his ears. The air felt heavy, pressing against Ao's chest, but his mind was clear for the first time in many days. Now he understood. The forest around them was quiet, but not peaceful. Birds watched from branches without singing. Insects moved softly through leaves. Everything seemed to be waiting. Before the sun fully rose, Mama Nia returned. She walked slowly, leaning slightly on her carved staff, but her eyes were sharp and focused. She stood at the edge of the river and studied the water, not with fear, but with memory. There is little time, Mama Nia said, and less room for mistakes. She spoke again, repeating the instructions carefully, the way elders repeat important words so they do not slip away. Cato must drink again, she said. Not from a pot, not from a calabash, his hands only. No words of blessing, she added. No songs, no prayers. In front of everyone, she said again. Because lies weaken in open light. One chance, Mama Nia warned. If fear delays the moment, the binding becomes strong forever. Cato trembled violently as he listened. His fingers dug into his arms, nails pressing into skin. His breathing came fast and shallow, his eyes wide with terror. Ao placed a steady hand on Cato's shoulder. You are not alone, Ao said softly. We will stand with you. Cato nodded once, though fear still filled his face. River Loma shifted slightly, its surface swelling and settling, as if it understood what was being planned. When Ao returned to Iluahe later that morning, the village felt wrong. People moved quickly, whispering excitedly. Relief moved through the air like smoke after rain. News traveled from mouth to mouth before Ao even reached the market. Maliku has spoken to the elders, someone said. He admitted a mistake, another whispered. He bowed, a woman added. He asked for forgiveness. By midday, a crowd had gathered. Maliku stood before the elders, his posture lowered, his hands open in front of him. His voice was softer than ever, filled with sorrow that sounded honest enough to comfort tired hearts. I wanted to help, Maliku said. If I caused harm, I am sorry. Gasps moved through the crowd. Some people cried openly, others sighed in relief. I will fix it, Maliku continued. From today, the water will be free. No waiting, no payment, only healing. Hope rushed back into Iluahe. The elders embraced Maliku. They praised his humility. They said even good people make mistakes. Ao stood at the edge of the crowd, his chest tight. False hope is the most dangerous kind. That evening, people drank more water than ever before. They laughed loudly, desperate to chase fear away. Fires burned bright. Drums beat late into the night. Children danced near River Loma, splashing without worry. Maliku smiled calmly, watching them. But Ao watched the shadows. They stretched longer than they should have. As the celebration continued, Ao moved quietly among the people. He listened to their laughter. He watched their faces relax too quickly. He saw how easily fear turned back into trust. Mama Nia stood apart, unseen by most, her eyes fixed on River Loma. This is how it tightens, she murmured. When people believe they are safe. Ao felt time pressing against his chest like a heavy hand. That night, sleep brought no rest. His dreams turned sharp and cruel. Shadows clawed at him, pulling at his breath, pressing down on his chest until he woke choking. Outside, he saw Maliku standing alone by River Loma, staring into the water as if listening to a voice only he could hear. Morning came too quickly. Before dawn fully broke, Mama Nia gathered them again at the river bend. She checked the sky. She checked the water. She listened carefully, her head tilted slightly, as if hearing something far away. This must happen today, she said. Before the sun sets. Cato shook violently. I am afraid, he whispered. So is everyone who tells the truth, Mama Nia replied gently. She traced symbols into the damp soil with her finger, not to summon power, but to remember old rules. Do not hesitate, she warned Ao. Do not let fear slow your hands. Ao nodded, his jaw tight. River Loma leaned closer, its surface rising slightly, as if aware of what was coming. As the sun climbed higher, a message spread through Iluahe. Maliku had called for a final gathering. A blessing for all, people said. A sign that sickness is gone. By midday, the entire village moved toward River Loma. Men, women, children, elders. They came smiling, calabashes in hand, relief shining in their eyes. Ao walked among them, his steps slow but steady. Kato stayed close, head bowed, hands shaking. Mama Nia followed behind, silent and watchful. River Loma looked calm, too calm. This was the last window. By the time the sun stood high in the sky, the whole of Iluahe had gathered beside River Loma. No one stayed behind. Men stood shoulder to shoulder, their faces open and hopeful, calabashes resting against their legs. Women whispered softly to one another, relief showing in their eyes. Children moved between adults until firm hands pulled them back, holding them close. The riverbank had never been so full. At the front stood Maliku, slightly raised on a smooth stone near the water. His posture was tall again, his shoulders straight, his calm smile returned. His robes were clean and bright, untouched by dust, glowing softly under the sun. My people, Maliku called, spreading his arms wide. We have walked through fear together. Today, we walk back into blessing. Cheers rose from the crowd. Some people clapped, others lifted their calabashes high. Ao stood near the back, his heart beating hard against his ribs. Beside him, Kato shook uncontrollably, his eyes fixed on the river. Mama Nia stood just behind them, quiet and steady, her gaze never leaving the water. Maliku lifted his hands higher. Come, he said, let River Loma show us its kindness again. That was when Kato stepped forward. At first, many people did not recognize him. He moved slowly, his steps uneven, his body thin and bent like wood left too long in the sun. His clothes hung loosely from his frame. His bare feet pressed carefully into the sand. A low murmur passed through the crowd. Some elders leaned forward, squinting. A woman gasped and covered her mouth. It cannot be, someone whispered. They had said Kato drowned years ago. They had mourned him once. Then they forgot. Kato lifted his head. I drank first, he said. His voice was weak, but the words carried clearly across the riverbank. River Loma stirred. For the first time, Maliku's calm broke. His smile did not disappear fully, but it cracked. His eyes widened slightly. His hands tightened at his sides. Mama Nia stepped forward. Let him drink, she said clearly. Without the pot. Confusion rippled through the crowd. What does she mean? Someone asked. Before anyone could stop him, Kato walked to the edge of River Loma. His knees buckled, but he forced himself down. His hands trembled violently as he leaned forward. Ao held his breath. Kato plunged his hands directly into the river. The reaction was instant. The surface of River Loma exploded upward, water surging and twisting violently. Waves slammed against the bank. Foam rose thick and white. Fish leapt wildly, flashing silver before falling back lifeless. Kato screamed, not in pain, but in release. Names poured from his mouth. Faces, voices, laughter long forgotten. His body shook violently as tears streamed down his face. The crowd staggered backward in terror. Mothers shielded children. Men shouted warnings too late to matter. The river boiled. Maliku stepped back, his composure finally breaking. His breathing grew fast. His eyes darted toward the crowd, searching for escape. The binding was cracking. Ao felt it deep in his bones. Something beneath River Loma was losing its hold. The water of River Loma did not calm immediately. It surged and twisted, its surface folding over itself like cloth being torn by many hands. Foam rose thick and white, hissing as it spread across the bank. The air felt tight, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. Kato collapsed to his knees, coughing and shaking, emptying the last of what had been held inside him for years. His hands were raw and red from the water. Tears ran freely down his face, but his eyes were clear now. Clear in a way they had not been since anyone in Iluahe could remember. Mama Nia stood firm at the river's edge. "Do not turn away," she said loudly, her voice cutting through the fear. "This is what truth looks like." The crowd froze. And then it happened. The shadow behind Maliku moved. At first, it was small. Just a slight pull, like cloth caught on a thorn. Maliku stiffened. His breathing quickened. His eyes widened just enough to betray him. Then the shadow tore free. It stretched upward, longer than any human shape, thin and uneven, its edges wavering like smoke caught in wind. It had no face, no eyes, no mouth, only hunger. Its arms lengthened, fingers sharp and claw-like, reaching slowly toward the crowd. People screamed. Children cried out. Mothers grabbed them tightly. Men stumbled backward, tripping over one another in panic. "This is what fed on your trust." Mama Nia shouted. "You invited it with praise." Maliku screamed now, his voice no longer calm, no longer gentle. His perfect posture collapsed. His robes dulled. The shine left his skin. He tried to step away, but the shadow clung to him, pulling at his back, dragging him toward River Loma. That was when Ao stepped forward. His heart pounded. His hands shook. Fear filled his chest, but it no longer ruled him. Ao grabbed one of the clay pots lying near the riverbank. It felt familiar in his hands. Trusted. Ordinary. He raised it high. Mama Nia nodded once. Now. Ao brought the pot down hard against the stone. It shattered. Fragments flew through the air, frozen for a brief moment in the sunlight. The sound echoed across the riverbank like a drumbeat struck by fate itself. The shadow screamed, a sound without a mouth, a sound that vibrated through bone. River Loma surged forward violently, pulling the shadow backward. Its long arms stretched desperately toward the crowd, then snapped away as the water dragged it down. Maliku fell to his knees. His body began to crumble. Starting at his feet, he turned to ash, gray and light, blowing away in the river's wind. His face froze in terror and disbelief before it vanished completely. River Loma roared once more. Then, silence. For a long moment, no one spoke. The water settled. Foam drifted away, the surface smoothed until it looked like it always had. But nothing was the same. People began to remember. A woman screamed the name of a child she had forgotten she lost. An old man sank to the ground, weeping for a brother he had stopped grieving. Mothers clutched their children tighter than ever before. Kato sat quietly now, breathing deeply, his shaking slowly easing. He looked at Ao and nodded, gratitude too heavy for words. Mama Nia stepped back into the crowd. "My work is done," she said softly. Ao did not answer. He simply watched River Loma. As the sun lowered, people drifted away in silence. No songs were sung. No drums were beaten. Iluahe felt older now, not in years, but in understanding. That night, River Loma flowed gently. The shadows followed their owners again. And before dawn, Ao left the village. He did not wait for praise. He did not seek thanks. Some truths are meant to be carried away quietly. The narrator's voice softens now, steady and calm. If only they knew what he did to their water, they would have listened before faith became fear. The story you have just heard is a beautiful African tale I heard long ago. I'm telling you to wake your minds to the danger of blind trust and the power of asking questions, even when hope feels sweet. If you were the protagonist, what would you do? I want to know your opinion, because every story is like a candle that can light the path for someone else.